Hey guys, welcome to the advanced dog walking class. My name is Amanda Bolus. I work here in the behavior department. Thank you for your interest in wanting to become an advanced dog walker. We are always in need of more volunteers to be able to walk some of these challenging dogs. So today is more of an information session, kind of just review some things. This is essentially part one. There is a part two, which is going to be a hands-on interaction where we will actually have you come in the shelter, walk some dogs, and kind of put some of the stuff we learned today into practice. So today we're going to review general guidelines, just as a part of being a dog walker, make sure that you're still practicing these things. We're going to go over body language, both dog's body language and our body language. We are going to talk about some advanced dog walking concepts, and then go more into detail about the specific behaviors that make an advanced dog versus basic. And at the end, we're going to kind of just do a little bit of troubleshooting. Some of the stuff we will also review when you guys come in for your hands-on portion. Okay, so let's kind of start just briefly mentioning what the different types of behaviors you will come across when you are walking advanced dogs. So we do get a lot of high energy and high arousal dogs. These can be little guys, but often they are the bigger ones, just a little bit more harder to manage when you're walking them. Leash reactivity. So as a basic dog walker, you might have had some dogs that had some reactivity. To make it to advanced, they're usually bigger and they're just a little bit harder to redirect. And so just again, it makes it a little bit more challenging. Same with fear. You have probably walked some dogs that were fear, but on basic. These guys that make it to advanced are just going to be a lot more fearful. They're going to need people just to go really, really slow. You may get them outside and they don't really want to walk that much because it's kind of scary in the environment. So just again, a little bit more challenging. And then some medical things may make a dog be advanced. Things like being blind, deaf, or a tripod. Usually those alone are not necessarily what puts them on the advanced dog walking status. It's usually that in conjunction with one of the other behaviors. So it just proves to be a little bit more challenging, and you have to make sure that you're being mindful of that medical side while you're also dealing with maybe high energy or fear or something like that. Okay, so let's go through some walking reminders. So when it comes to walking, please only walk dogs that are on the walking list. So now that you guys are going to be advanced dog walkers, it opens up so many more dogs for you, but they do need to be on either basic or advanced or that stray walk. If you see anything else, then please do not walk those dogs. So again, looking for basic, advanced, or that stray walk. Please only walk one dog at a time. So this still does pertain, even if there are two dogs in a kennel or they are classified as being bonded. We do not want you walking two dogs, even if they're super small and you could easily do it. You just never know what's going to happen once you get them out of their kennel. So please get help from another dog walker. Keep in mind, however, if both dogs in that kennel are advanced, your other dog walker does still need to be an advanced dog walker. When slip leading dogs, make sure that you are fully entering kennels. We don't want to be leashing any of these dogs at the door because we don't want to create a habit of darting out the door when getting leashed. So you need to fully enter to leash them, and you need to fully enter to unleash them. If you have a dog that's struggling a little with the leashing issues, definitely use treats, and then be really mindful of not looming over or hovering. So no bending at the waist, make sure you're bending at the knees. When walking a dog, make sure that you are not wrapping that leash around your hands. If a dog were to pull really hard, maybe down the stairs, we don't want you to go with that dog. If that dog slips out of your hands, we'll just work on getting that dog back rather than you having you be pulled down and hurting yourself. So again, no wrapping it around. Leash wrapping dogs is also going to help you when you have those kind of dogs. So please place a leash wrap. If you're not as comfortable with that, then we will definitely practice that when you come in for your hands-on. When placing that leash wrap, you have a variety of places you can do it. You can do it in the kennel. Sometimes though, the dog is so aroused in the kennel that you need to kind of just step out. So doing it at other areas of distraction. So just before you leave maybe the kennel area, so the pod area, you can do it at the door, or just before you're about to exit the building. It's better if you do it in a enclosed area, a quiet area, versus once you get outside, because there just may be too much going on. So if needed, do before you get out. When you're done with the play yard, for instance, that would be a good time before you start walking the friction circle good to place that leash wrap. Some walking reminders: when you're out and about in the building, make sure that you aren't taking dogs into any of the clean areas, clean laundry, areas with food. We just want to make sure when it comes to contagion. Please do not allow dogs to meet when on leash, also for contagion. So if you come in, you walk with other dog walkers that you are familiar with and you want to catch up and stuff, we do want to make sure that there's still plenty of distance between the two of you guys when you are walking. As a reminder, please do not have your cell phones out when you are walking dogs. Even when you're in the play yards, please make sure that your cell phone's away and that you are watching the dog. Behavior can change just like that, and we want to make sure we always have our eyes on the dog and not on our cell phone. Please only walk dogs in approved areas. So here at the Malone Center, we have the big friendship circle. At the Buddy Center, they have the different play yards. So making sure that you are only taking dogs to the appropriate areas. We don't want dogs to be walking around in the front or through the lobby and stuff as they're walked. We want them to be taken to the back, to the friendship circle, or specifically to those play yards if you're at the Buddy Center. When walking, please allow your dogs a chance to stop and sniff. Sniffing is very rewarding for a dog. They take a lot of different things in. It's also a great form of mental stimulation. So if you spend the whole time just walking really fast and you have a dog that wants to stop a lot, you're taking away a really good opportunity for that dog to kind of de-stress. So please take the time to allow that dog to sniff, even if it seems like every few feet you're having to sniff. You may find that you just don't go the big long path if you're walking the friendship circle, because you are going to stop more often. You can work on loose leash walking if you have a dog that is pulling, but we definitely don't want to be reinforcing them to heel or anything like that. We want to allow them to go and sniff and then just kind of work on not pulling as much. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Some safety things. So as a reminder, if you do want to communicate anything to staff, we do have those needs attention slips. So those are going to be for minor medical things, and then obviously a variety of behavior concerns. The dogs you're walking are on vans, usually have gone through a behavior program, but time in a shelter can change things. So if you are walking an advanced dog, we're probably familiar with the behavior, but please let us know if things gotten worse. So you may, for instance, be walking an advanced dog that the first few walks, the dog was only jumping. Now the dog's been here for over a week, maybe two, and it's starting to become more mouthy. That is something that staff may not know about. So please fill out the needs attention slip. Even though we are aware of that dog and its behavior, we still want to know if there's any changes in it. The other thing you can do for needs attention slip is to communicate if a dog doesn't need advance or vice versa. So as an advanced dog walker, we still ask that you walk those basic guys. You don't need to spend your whole shift just walking advance. Especially if you end up walking a lot of those challenging guys, you are going to need a break. So if you go walk a basic dog and you think that they could benefit from being on advance, please let us know. Also, if you are walking an advanced dog and you feel like they're doing really well, please also let us know. We often have more advanced dogs than we have advanced dog walkers. So anytime we can take one of those guys off the advanced list and allow more basic walkers to walk it is always good for them. So to fill out those needs attention slips, they're going to be found next to the computer where you are looking up your dogs. So fill it out. The key to a needs attention slip is going to be that A number. Kennel location can change and occasionally the name can change, but that animal ID number is never going to change. So fill that out and then return it into the other container that says drop needs attention slips here. Loose dog. So hopefully you've never had to experience a loose dog while you're here, but they do happen. And it is sometimes more likely to happen with an advanced guy because either they're jumping all over the place or if they're really fearful, they may get easily startled. The main thing when a dog gets away from you, no matter where it is, even if it's outside, is remain calm. We will help you get that dog back. We don't want you to freak out. We don't want you to start chasing that dog, yelling at the dog. You might end up getting that dog to run in a direction you don't want. Do make sure to let people know though. So the only yelling that should be going on is you yelling loose dog so that everyone knows that you have a loose dog. Also, if someone were to enter the room, maybe your dog is in, they're prepared if they have their own dog, not to have the dogs meet to meet. When getting the dog back on leash, make sure to be really cautious. Don't hover, don't try to throw the leash on. Go really slow, remain calm, and use treats to get that leash back on. Usually if a loose dog is outside, staff will be informed and staff will come over and they will help and they will direct people around. So it's usually just releashing when you're inside the building and a dog gets away from you, but make sure that you are going slow and reading what that dog is telling you so that you don't put yourself in a position to potentially get bitten. Make sure to also not grab the collar. So that is another way to get bitten, is if that dog were to try to get away from you and you quickly grab that collar to keep him from slipping out, a dog can easily turn around and bite you in that moment. So no grabbing of the collars. Never use the collar as a way to get a dog back to its kennel. You need to have that leash. Use that slip leash, get that leash on, and use that to get the dog back. If your dog is reacting to something, either inside the building or out when you're walking, the easiest thing to do is create distance. So that can be done in a variety of ways. You can go a different way on the path. You could stop and distract your dog for a little bit with treats and let the dog walker in front of you get a little further ahead. You can also, if the dog is just not doing really well, especially say you're at the buddy center and the dog is just having a hard time at the fence, then maybe go to a different area or take the dog back in that moment. You can always walk that dog again later in the day. When it comes to reactive dogs and walking through the building, please be mindful of that. If you are walking past other dogs up in the adoption lobby and all the dogs are getting really worked up, that leads to a lot more stress. So we don't want to be walking a reactive dog past other dogs up front, but also not through the lobby. We don't want our patrons to get startled by a dog that may start barking at them. So really be mindful of where you are walking your reactive dogs. Training. So just as a reminder, I believe this was mentioned when you guys became just basic dog walkers, is you are more than welcome to train. When it comes to training dogs at the Dumb Friends League, we use positive reinforcement training only. The type of actual training method we use is clicker training. You do not have to start clicker training. So if you're not familiar with it, don't worry about it. If, however, you are familiar with it, you're more than welcome to do it. As a reminder, click always means treat. So even if you click for the wrong thing, you do need to give them a treat. We do ask, though, if you choose to do some training, that you don't use those really high value treats like hot dogs and cheese. And that's only because we are actually using those same treats to do actual training here with these dogs. So if you are a Head Start volunteer that's also going to walk advanced dogs on a different day, then that is fine. But if you are not a Head Start volunteer, then we are going to ask that you just use something yummy like pepperoni or something, but stay away from our hot dogs and cheese. And then as far as what to work on, I would just work on basic stuff. So if the dog is offering you sit, as a reminder, you click for the behavior. So when the butt hits the ground, click for the sitting and then follow that with the treat. So sit's a really good one. If the dog is offering you shake, down, waiting at doors, those are all really good things. And then when it comes to fearful dogs, if they're making eye contact, that's always a good one to do as well. So again, you are not required to train a dog when you are walking them, but you are more than welcome to. If you aren't familiar with clicker, then just use treats. If your dog sits, tell him he's a good boy and give him a treat. When it comes to behaviors, and if you definitely want to learn more, you can always, talk to behavior. And also if you are struggling in a moment, you can't get the dog back in or get the dog out and things like that, the behavior can also come and help. Usually it just requires somebody paging behavior and telling us where we need to meet you. Okay, so let's kind of dive into dog body language. So this is just a review. You are familiar with most of these postures. We just want to make sure that you're comfortable with them. So we're going to go through all the different categories, I guess you can call it, of different behaviors that we see definitely here in the shelter. So the first one is the one that we always hope we see, and that's the content or comfortable dog. So this dog is basically relaxed all around. So the ears are going to be held down, basically neutral wherever they go, loose against the head. The eyes are going to be soft. They're going to be squinting, blinking, but not holding them tight or excessive blinking. They are going to be quick to avert their gaze. The only exception to this rule is some of your herding breeds, so your border collies, Australian shepherds. They are known to kind of stare at people and hold gaze, but as long as you're looking at the rest of the body and everything else is telling you that that dog is comfortable, it could just be a breed thing. The mouth could either be open and light panting, or it may be closed but relaxed. You're not going to see any tension around the muzzle. Body is going to be relaxed, not stiff when it's moving, very soft as it moves around. It's going to be very receptive to attention and sometimes even initiate that interaction. Sometimes you might have a dog kind of put their weight on the back as in a play bout. This little picture shows like this. Some dogs, when stressed, will do what we call play deflection. So again, making sure that everything about that dog is showing you that it's a comfortable, content dog when you see those little play bows, or sometimes it's even just a little elbow bend. Tail is going to be held neutrally, so wherever it naturally lays, it will be. It's not going to be straight up and it's not going to be tucked. And then it might be wagging. So when you think of a loose waggy dog, that tail is just leisurely moving around. So there's no stiffness. It's not, the tip of it's not wagging. It's a nice, loose, leisure wag. So then we go on to the alert dog. So this could be something that happens in a moment. So it could be when you first approach the kennel. It could also be that you got the dog outside and something has caught its attention outside, maybe just before it starts to become a little reactive. So the ears are often going to be perked forward or erect. So depending on, again, where they are, if they're pointed up, they might just be kind of pointed, but they may be a little forward, as you see in these two little pictures. These guys are usually going to do that direct stare. They're going to look at whatever caught their attention. Often they're doing a really hard stare, so hard to redirect their focus as well. Mouth there, you're going to see a lot more tension. So their lips are going to be drawn forward, tightly closed mouth, and as far as vocalizations, they may start to whine or bark. Body often is their weight is forward. So it's on the front feet, it's ready to move forward. Hackles, so that hair on the back of their neck all the way down to their tail might be raised. Tail is usually held high, and if it does wag, it's kind of a stiffer, rapid wag. Fearful dog. So with these guys, their ears may be held more to the side or flattened straight against their head. Their head, they may turn it away, kind of like that little tan guy at the bottom. Their eyes are going to be really wide, and sometimes you may see the whites of their eyes, like the little black terrier in the top. Their pupils are usually fully dilated. Their mouth is going to be closed, or they may be panting excessively. They also might start to do a lot of displacement behaviors, so like that play deflection, and I'll talk about a few more in a second. Body, weight is usually going to be on the back feet. So they are prepared to backpedal to get away from you. They may also roll onto their back. So this is something we want you to be mindful of. Often when dogs show us their belly, we think it's an invitation to pet their belly. Fearful dogs are quick to show you their belly. And we want to make sure that we are only reinforcing what we call confident postures. So please do not pet the belly when a dog shows you his belly. We're going to instead wait for the dog to sit back up, and then either we can pet them again, but if they roll back over, then we're going to stop petting altogether and try to redirect their attention. Hiding. So hiding can be a couple things. They could be hiding behind a kennel mate. They could be hiding behind you. So if you were outside and they got a little scared, they may go behind your legs. They may also try to retreat. So retreat can be inside the building. It can also be when you're walking around, something startles them and they dart to the end of the leash. So these guys, you definitely want to be mindful of the environment, potentially startling them, because if they start darting and they start flailing, that can quickly escalate a situation. Tail is often held low or tucked between the legs, but it may also be wagging. So when we think of a wagging tail, as we talked about earlier, wagging can be a variety of things. So a loose, leisure wag, comfortable dog. A high, stiff, rapid wag, more an alert dog. Tuck tail, maybe tip of it, or a little bit of a wag is going to be more that fearful component. Okay, so let's talk about those displacement behaviors. So Again, these are going to be something that happens when you're engaging with the dog and the dog is becoming a little bit more stressed. You're going to start to see some changes. All of these things you will see are what we consider normal natural behaviors, but if they are happening in excess or kind of out of context, it may simply be because of the interaction. So some of the things are like lip licking. So dogs, you just watch them for a little bit, you can see that tongue kind of come out. If you notice it's happening when you're hovering over them or after touching them, again, that's just kind of a signal. Sometimes it's used as a calming signal to kind of calm them back down. Sniffing. So often a dog is just going to the same spot over and over. So we see this a lot with our fearful guys when we are trying to introduce them to other people during a training session. They will find a place that's near a person and just sniff. And you keep trying to get them engaged, but they have no interest. They just continually sniff that area. Scratching. So scratching, again, is a normal activity, but if all of a sudden they are quick to scratch at their ears or at their collar, and it just seems more when you're interacting with them, could be displacement. If they are a floppy-eared dog, then we do want to make sure it's not some sort of ear infection. So there could be other causes, obviously, but if it just seems to be happening or increasing, the more you're interacting, it could be more of that displacement thing. Shake off. So often with a shake off, it happens, in the midst of being stressed, but also after an incident. So say you just got done petting. Yes, they let you pet, but they were really tense about it. Sometimes when you pull your hands back, that's when they're going to kind of shake it off. So they're feeling that stress. They're trying to calm themselves. And so all of a sudden, they'll do a full body shake. Yawning. So again, yawning isn't a natural behavior, but if all of a sudden during my interaction with the dog, they continually yawn, then that is definitely a good sign that my dog's getting a little bit stressed. And then sneezing. So again, here in a kennel setting, you do want to make sure that there's no other signs of kennel cough. But if everything about the dog is looking healthy and all of a sudden they're sneezing a lot more during your interaction, could be a displacement. And same with stretching. So stretching after laying down and getting up, not a big deal. But if they are just constantly looking for something else to do, like stretching, and then just be mindful of what you're currently doing with that dog. Here's a few more. So kind of sitting or laying down, especially out of the way of things. So if there's a lot of hustle and bustle, or say you go to a play yard and they lay down but not near you, they may be taking themselves out of the equation. Standing silently, maybe they're gazing off, so you're kind of looking in the direction they're looking and you don't see anything that may have caught their interest. That could be them, again, just looking for something else to do. Drinking, so when we do have the water bowls out during the summer, or if you just got a dog back to his kennel, if he's panting and he seems like he's really exerting himself like a high arousal dog and he's drinking, that's probably just him needing water. But if you just took a fearful dog out for a short walk, they didn't really exert themselves, you bring him back to the kennel and you decide to spend some time with them and they just keep going back to that water bowl, again, they may be getting a little bit stressed, and staying in there with that kennel for a while may not be the best thing for them. Urinating and defecating. So some animals, some dogs in particular, will hold their urine and even their poop as they walk around. So they will more like a marking behavior. But sometimes we do see it as a displacement thing. So again, these are all things that are normal, but if they are happening in excess during an interaction, they are looking for stuff to do. So some dogs are pretty good, if they are a higher stress dog, of not necessarily releasing their full bladder when they pee. They save it so that they can find that thing to do when needed. And then grooming, we already talked about scratching, but if they're just all of a sudden during interaction, they're quick to do something else, lick their paw, over grooming is definitely a sign of stress. So displacement is, again, often occurs in a situation. So also another term for calming signals. The other one we wanted to talk to you about is something we call appeasement behaviors. So when a dog perceives something as a threat, this could be another animal or this can be a person. What they are going to do is a variety of different behaviors that make the other thing not see them as a threat. So they want to come off as not threatening to the person or animal they see as a threat. So a lot of these things are similar to the fearful component. But again, if you're seeing these things, then especially if they're increasing. It may be a sign, sadly, that that dog is seeing you more as a threat. So look at what you're doing. You know, are you looming over them? Are you staring at them? What are some things you can change to not be so threatening? So some of the different things, looking away, slow movements, avoiding eye contact, lying on back, exposing belly. Again, make sure no petting of bellies. Paw raises, so they're just kind of holding that paw up. Maybe they're trembling as they do it. The lip retraction, or also known as the submissive grin. So that's usually the front teeth, those incisors. Fearful urination. So sometimes with young dogs, you go to leash them and they're so excited that they pee a little. But sometimes there could be a fear component to it. So again, when you're going to leash, if you're hovering, all of a sudden that dog may pee a little. And then licking a person or other dog's face. So if you have a dog that's kind of showing some of these things, avoiding eye contact, and you get down low and all of a sudden it's trying to lick your face, it could be more of an appeasing behavior. So again, they're going to come in as little as threatening as they can and show that they are not a threat, so that coming up to lick the face. So we do want to make sure that we don't allow dogs to lick our face, even if they're being appeasing and fearful and we want to make them feel better, we don't want them in our faces. Some other signs of stress. So if you are feeding treats and they are just quick to grab at them, so it's just like a quick sudden movement, shaking or trembling, panting. So often again, it's going to be more of an excessive pant. Sweaty paws, if you happen to see the ground that they are on. Pacing, so this could be pacing in the kennel, this could be pacing in the play yard. You took them to play in the yard and they just stay by the gate and they pace back and forth. Whining or other vocalizations, stress lines in face, so usually with that panting, you'll see it around the muzzle and up here in the forehead. Excessive shedding, so you'll just start to see their fur everywhere, or when you're petting them, you're gonna get a lot of fur in your hand. Same with dandruff on the coat. And then again, that whale eye. So that's that. Eyes are really big and you're starting to see the whites of it. So the thing that we want you to take away from this whole review of behavior and body postures is behavior is fluid. In the time that you are spending with the dog, all the way from the kennel when you first get them out, walking around the circle or taken to a play yard and back inside, things are going to change. So you need to constantly be watching that dog to see for changes. So you can kind of see with this guy, when you first approached, hunched over, averted gaze, ears back, the more that this person engages with them, they're starting to do a lot of lip licks, still maintaining that hunched behavior, and then eventually to the point of yawning. So you kind of see there's more things, more displacement, more piecing postures starting to come up, that you need to be mindful of what you're seeing, because you don't want to overly stress the dogs. Yes, getting them outside could be beneficial, but if getting them outside means, forcing them in a situation that they're not comfortable in, then we'd rather you not take that dog in that moment. Just put it down as an attempt and somebody else can try. Maybe in the afternoon, maybe something happened before you came to walk the dog, maybe the kennel was just cleaned and they're already over a threshold. So maybe somebody walking that dog in the afternoon would be a little bit better. So we do want to touch on some dog-dog interaction. So again, when you're outside walking dogs, they're not going to be together, but we do house dogs together. So we just want you to be comfortable with seeing some of the different things when they are together, so you can read some of those postures and maybe redirect attention if needed. So they're going to do some of the slow blinking to each other. You may see some freezing moments, guarding or body blocking. So that can happen over the water bowl, if there's toys, if there's any food left, but also even you. So if you're down on the ground, you're kneeling over and you're petting a couple different dogs, you may find one is kind of just putting their body between you and the other dog every time the other dog tries to approach. Mounting, displacement behaviors to each other, muzzle nudge, or even a full-on punch, kind of a get back behavior, pawing at the other dog, hackles raised, a body slam or kind of a shoulder bump, side turn or curving around, so kind of as they approach each other, T-stancing, so that's usually when one dog approaches the other. they kind of go straight up and then they kind of hover over the dog. Usually they will put their head over the shoulders of the other dog and it creates this kind of T thing. Direct staring, and then sometimes standing over if one dog is laying down, or if you have a bigger dog, they kind of just stand over those. So those are things that we just want to be mindful of. They could easily escalate a situation. So if you're spending time in a kennel with multiple dogs and you're seeing some of these things, usually the best thing to do is just to step out. Some corrections. These are things that could also happen if you were to stay around longer in the kennel, that it kind of escalates. So if you see a lot of head whipping, especially if a dog is trying to sniff the other dog, maybe quick to turn around and head whip, or you may see a little bit more of an aggressive display. So lip lifting, growl, snarl, bark, lunge, snap, mouth, or bite. Some of these things, when it comes to corrections, you cannot teach one dog to listen to another dog. They have to learn that on their own. It's usually done through socialization, but we get a lot of dogs that aren't well socialized. So when it comes to corrections, those lower ones are a lot more acceptable, obviously, baring of your teeth, growling, barking. And the hope is that if you were to see those in a kennel, that the other dog would listen, but that's not always the case. So those would be good times that if you're in the kennel, try to redirect their attention, step out, because sometimes it is because they are both or more than one of them are trying to get your attention and they're just being forced to stay in the same space. So step out. We do want you guys to be safe. But if you see it continue, it escalates maybe to lunging, snapping, or a bite, then we do ask as volunteers that you inform a staff member, because if they are going to escalate on each other, even though it's just a correction, it could quickly turn into a fight. And so we may need to separate those dogs. So the beginning ones, lip, lift, growl, redirect attention, step out, and then just watch them. The hope is that they'll go to separate areas, they'll put distance between them, they'll lay down, and they'll be fine. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at these 3 pictures. I do apologize, some of them are a little bit blurry, but basically we're just gonna kind of talk about what we see. So in the first one, so again, that's the blurriest of them, I apologize, but some of the obvious things that I see some lip licking, I see the ears back, I see what looks like hackles raised. Tail is kind of more stiffly put. Obviously in a picture you can't see if it's wagging. The dog looks like it might be, curving, doing that C approach, but it also has a paw raised. So I'm seeing a variety of different things, a lot more appeasing postures potentially. So how I interact with that dog is going to be dependent on those behaviors. So I'm gonna do some good things to kind of come off as not so threatening. But again, if I continually see those postures, say I'm in the play yard with this dog, then sometimes the best thing to do is just put some distance, step away or try to redirect, maybe get a toy or something like that. Number 2 is an interaction between 2 dogs. So I see a variety of things. Some people get a little concerned when they see this picture because the lab definitely has their hackles raised, but I see some good things as well. So the lab also has, it's doing that elbow bend, ears back, mouth is open, but it's just kind of a light open. It's not, I don't see a lot of stress lines and stuff in the face. So just in a picture alone, I would say that this lab is about to do a play bow, but yes, it is a little aroused with the hackles raised. So I would want to make sure if I was at a dog park and one of these were my dogs, I would just watch them to make sure that the play didn't get out of hand. Because the other guy, the little golden doodle, I don't see a lot of tension. He is kind of curving around. A picture is really hard, so maybe he did do a head whip initially when the lab approached. But I'm not seeing ears back, hackles raised, or anything on the golden doodle. So I would just want to watch these guys. They may just not have the same kind of play style. So they ultimately may not play well together, but they might. They might end up doing kind of a balanced chase me game where they're going back and forth, and that is okay, but I do want to keep an eye on my lab because there is a little bit of arousal there. Okay, lastly with 3. So some of the obvious things, ears back, eyes are wide, fully dilated, and you can see the whites of his eyes. also looking away completely. So the turquoise color you see right there, I believe, is a person. And so the dog is basically looking her butt at the person. So even though you only see the head of it, there's definitely a lot of tension. So with that kind of dog, especially if that person is standing right next to it, I'd want to give that dog a little bit of space too, maybe redirect its attention. Okay, so now we are going to talk about human body language. So these are things to keep in mind in general, but also things that I want you to do when you see a dog's change in body posture. So if they're all of a sudden really comfortable when you first approach, but during your interaction, you see a dog that's a little bit more appeasing, then make sure that you are being mindful of what you are doing and alter what you are doing. Okay, so some obvious things is turning to your side. So just like the little cartoon shows, even when you approach a person straight on, it can be a little bit threatening. So offering your side is always a better approach. Kneeling down, so bending at the knees, not at the waist, so you are not hovering over that dog. Moving slowly, so make sure that you're not doing a lot of quick motions. You know, say you enter a kennel where the dog is jumping all over you. Your first instinct may be to try to get that leash on really quick and try to get that dog out as quick as possible. But if you are all over the place, you're moving really quickly, that dog may start to escalate more and more because they're already aroused and they're already over threshold. So even in those situations, calm down, slow down, and just kind of get out as soon as you can. You don't have to rush it. Taking breaks. So if you have a dog that's a little overwhelmed, a little over threshold, sometimes that separation can be really helpful. Even if it's in a kennel, so say there are two dogs and the dog that you have to get out is showing you a higher level of fear. A simple break can be just engaging with the other dog, the kennel mate. So ignoring the one that you're, again, ultimately want to walk, but in that moment, we're just gonna leave it alone. And then I can focus my attention back. So breaks are really good. If I have an aroused dog, sometimes breaks are really good. And breaks may be getting out of the situation. So stepping out of the kennel, or if I'm in a play yard, stepping into that little alcove to give some separation and a break for my dog. Again, avoid leaning over, avoid that direct eye contact, and avoid petting the belly if that dog were to roll onto his back. Okay, so now we're gonna go through a couple different ways that you can kind of help remember to slow down when it comes to engaging with dogs. So the first one we're gonna talk about is what we call the 5-second rule. So 5 seconds doesn't seem like a lot of time, but it does give you enough time to check that initial reaction. And then when you enter the kennel, 5 more seconds to see what changes in behavior posture. So this is gonna be when you first enter the kennel. Approach, watch, you don't need to talk to the dog or anything like that. You're just assessing the behavior. It's fine if you talk to the dog, but really what you're looking for is the behavior and those body postures. Then I want you to stop engaging and see what's happened. So you first approach, you're talking to the dog, you're assessing the body postures. Then stop engaging. Watch for body postures. Is there any changes? You can also do something that we call whoa, which I'll talk about in a second. But basically, we're looking for changes in postures in those first 5 seconds of interaction and then no interaction. If the dog engages with you when you stop engaging, so you're seeing some eye contact, maybe they were on the other side of the kennel and now they're at the door, maybe they were jumping on the door, but all of a sudden they got off, then that's a really good thing. We want the animal to re-engage, to choose to re-engage. If the animal avoids, it moves to the back of the kennel, or if it's a guillotine, it moves to the other side, it averts its gaze. All of those things are just indicating to you that you may need to go a little slower, you may need to give them a little bit more time. So the 5-second rule, again, is just a reminder of you don't want to approach a kennel and then just automatically enter a kennel. You need to take the time to see what the dog is already telling you, both with engagement, but also without. Because if a dog wants you to continue to engage, that's great. If a dog disengages with you when you stop, then again, that doesn't mean you can't take him out, but I want to be mindful that that dog is already a little nervous of me, with me just standing outside. So this is also going to be true when you enter the kennel. So again, behavior is fluid. Every time you change something, the behavior can change. So standing outside of the kennel is one thing. Once you enter their space, that changes everything. So you really have to be mindful, especially with a fearful dog, because when you enter their space, you are taking away some of that area of them to run away to. And so, especially if you shut the guillotine, say you have multiple dogs in a kennel and you want to separate them out. So you shut that guillotine, you even have a smaller amount of space that you then just entered. So you need to be really mindful of changes in postures for every major change that you do. Presenting the leash is a major change, putting that leash on, going outside, going to a play yard, all those things are a change that could ultimately change the behavior. Okay, so WHOA basically stands for watch, observe, assess, and act accordingly. So WHOA, think about it in WHOA when you're slowing down your horse, if you like to ride horses. Basically, slow down. Don't rush through the interaction. So WHOA is a great thing to do at a lot of different stages of your dog walking time together. When you first approach the kennel, when you enter the kennel, when you take a dog to a play yard, when you bring a dog back to the kennel, if people engage with your dog when you're walking, all these things are going to be really important to observe those changes in postures and be prepared for it. So what we're going to do is we are going to actually watch a couple videos, and what we're going to do is first have you watch the video, and then I'm going to replay it and point out some of those postures to you. Okay, one more time. So here you already have head low, back hunched. You got one ear back, one kind of neutral, some sideways stare. The longer this person stays, this dog is now growling and starting to bare its teeth. Still has the hunch postures. Starting to look more directly at the person as opposed to before did more of the sideways stare, look away, sideways stare. So if I were to approach a dog like this that I needed to take out, so this could be a dog that's on the advanced dog walking list for fear. That initial approach is what's the hardest for a dog like this. So that doesn't mean that I can't walk this dog, but I do need to be mindful. If I am standing up in front of the kennel, if I'm staring at this dog, I need to alter some of those things. I need to kneel down, offer my side, speak softly, and kind of just see if that dog starts to settle. If that dog does not, if that dog continually growls at me, then I don't need to take the dog out in that moment. And that would be something worth filling out a needs attention slip to, because if that dog is constantly growling at dog walkers, then we may need to take that dog off of the dog walking status altogether. Okay, one more. Okay, so let's watch it together. So here, already direct approach, doing some alert barking. The tail, if you kind of watch, is going back and forth. Ears go back, dog starts to growl. He also does a bare teeth. Then he makes a really good decision and he runs back, so he just increased the distance. He also started to do some displacement things, some lip licking, ears went back, forward, but the tail, if you watch that, it was still a little stiff in its wag. So I want to be mindful of this dog. Obviously, approaches are hard for him as well. So I wouldn't want to just enter that kennel. I would still do the same things, offer my side, get down low. Again, it's a good decision that the dog made to separate himself out. So that's why sometimes leaving the guillotine open, if you were to walk a dog in a guillotine kennel, can be beneficial because it allows them to create that distance versus closing that guillotine, you take away those options. So all things to consider when you approach a dog that's already showing you some concerning behaviors, that how can I help this dog feel a little bit better? Sometimes with a dog, like we just watched, you presented the leash, you ask them if they want to go out, and all of a sudden they're a super happy dog because that's really what they want, but that initial approach was still hard for them. Okay, so that is body postures, theirs and ours. If you have any specific questions surrounding body postures or a situation where you thought you did the right thing, but it still didn't go as great, go ahead and write those down. And when you come in for the hands-on stuff, we will have time for questions, and sharing stories are always a great way for other volunteers to kind of hear some of the things that other people done. And it makes you feel like you're all on the same page. So definitely write down those questions or any stories of situations when it came to body postures that you would like to talk about. So now we're going to go into advanced walking concepts. So the first thing we're going to talk about is notes and then chameleon. So when it comes to advanced dogs, you're going to do a lot more with chameleon. You're not necessarily going to be altering chameleon except for through the dashboard and writing your notes, but you are going to be reading chameleon. So we will get you the generic login so that you can log in and start to look at notes, because the key to understanding the type of dog you're about to walk that's on the advanced list is reading the notes and seeing what other people have experienced, but also what's currently going on. What are the medical issues? Other people's walking notes, what experience have other people had? Note memos. So notes, a lot of people will write situations that occur. So if a dog had a poor visit with a patron, maybe it was jumping up and being very mouthy, that may be a reason why that dog made it to advance. And so notes can really give you a lot of information. And then that little comment box on the front screen can also say some things like dog does not walk well on leash, or dog does not do stairs. So making sure to thoroughly read those notes is really going to help you understand what kind of dog you're going to walk. When you come in for your hands-on, we will practice reading some of these notes. I'll show you some various places to look. So again, you can have a better idea of the type of dog you're about to walk. The other thing that I want to talk to you real quick about chameleon notes too is your dog walking notes. So hey, see how this says nice dog, easy to walk and leash? Please do not put this down for your advanced dog walking notes. We want more detail. We want to know how the dog was for leashing, how the dog was for walking. Was the dog jumping and nail raking? Did the dog put their mouth on you? If the dog was fearful, what did you see? Trembling postures, averting gaze, quick to show its belly. So definitely when putting in notes, your dog walking notes need to be a little bit more in detail for these advanced guys, because you're going to help the next dog walker have a better idea of what kind of dog they are about to walk. So please, if you currently write really simple notes, that's something that you're going to have to work on. Okay, initial greeting. So again, we kind of talked about that with the whoa concept, but part of the initial greeting is making sure that you are prepared. So prepared is, do you have all the necessary information that you need? Did you read all the things that you needed to do? The other thing is being self-aware. So if you say you just got off from work, you had a long day at work, you come in and you're like, I'm going to walk some advanced dogs, and the only dogs that are left over for advanced are the high arousal, jumpy, mouthy dogs. If you already had a really long day, you're not going to necessarily have the patience to walk a dog like that. So making sure that you are aware of how you're feeling when you go walk these dogs as well is going to be really important. It is okay if you're just not in a good place to walk some of these challenging dogs. Go ahead and walk some of the basic guys again. You will be qualified to walk advanced dogs after this part and the hands-on. That doesn't mean that's your only job. We want you to still be comfortable. We want you to have fun walking dogs. And I can guarantee some of these dogs will challenge you and make it a little bit more frustrating. So be aware, self-in-tune to how you're feeling. And if you're up for walking a dog that you just read is jumpy, is reactive, or something like that. Again, kennel gate. So we always want to assess where our dog is at the kennel gate before we enter, looking through the glass, depending on what type of door it is, or through the bars. Doing either the whoa, the 5 seconds, so taking the time to assess what you already see before you enter, and then obviously once you enter, what behaviors have changed. Leashing, again, you need to fully enter the kennel to leash, and then consider wrapping in the kennel or potentially at the next door you come to. And then walking routes. So this really speaks to where are you in the building and how do you get outside. So we do have a couple different ways depending on the kennel area you are on which route you need to be taking. The only exceptions to this is if you have a dog that doesn't do stairs, for instance, and you need to use the elevator or you need to use the ramp. Just make sure if you are going against traffic that you are mindful of the other dogs around and the other dog walkers so that you don't accidentally come face to face with another dog walker who is unprepared. So if you have to, for instance, go back to the lobby, through the lobby or go back to the elevator, that is fine, but just be prepared for other dog walkers to be around you. Okay, interaction. So again, 5-second rule, whoa. We're going to keep reminding you about that whole idea that behavior is fluid. Constantly be assessing your dog every time you change something about the environment or your interaction or something like that. Treats. So again, we're going to ask you not to use those really high value like hot dogs and treats that we use for training, but you are going to have a variety of treats that you use that some dogs are going to love or not love. So pepperoni can be a really good one. Some of your smelly ones. You can definitely use milk bones, but they may not be enough to get, say, a fearful dog to come back inside the building. You may need to make sure you have some smellier treats. Redirection. So when you're engaging with the dog that's maybe starting to show you some different behaviors, maybe they're jumping on you or they're barking at their dog, redirection is a great tool. That can be done with treats and toys, and we'll dive into that a little bit more. Find It is also another great redirection tool. So if I have a dog that is jumping all over me, an easy thing I can do is just grab a handful of treats in my hand and then toss it in a different direction. That way your dog goes, and if obviously it's on leash, you don't want to toss it too far, but if my dog stays jumping over me, I toss it a few feet away, my dog gets off and goes and eats those treats. Or if I have a reactive dog, I'm just trying to get his attention long enough so that I can create distance between me and the other dog walker, I can toss some treats like a Find It game and allow that other dog to get further. Toys, as a reminder, if you are playing fetch with your dog in the play yard, we are going to ask you to be mindful of going for one toy at the same time the other dog is. So the easiest thing to do is a 2-toy rule, doing a trading out aspect. So if you want to toss the ball that the dog currently has in its mouth, then have another toy in your hand that you show the dog. Dog drops the ball in its mouth, you toss the one in your hand, and then you can go pick up the ball without worrying about the dog trying to bite your hand for the ball. This can also be done with treats. I can toss treats away, the dog drops the toy to go eat the treats, and then I pick up the toy. But please be careful when doing fetch with toys. We don't want anyone to get accidentally bitten because they went for the ball or the squeaky toy at the same time as the dog. And then if I have a dog that's also jumping on me to try to get the toy, please be careful about that too. We have had dogs that really want that ball in your hand, so they're jumping up. So really be mindful of where you're keeping your hands and keeping that ball so that they don't accidentally scrape your hand with their tooth. Time on walk. So again, average 15-20 minutes, but some of these dogs aren't going to do that much. So if I have a really fearful dog that outside is just getting a little overwhelmed, I may not be able to do as long of a walk as maybe that high arousal dog. And even with that high arousal dog, maybe I try the play yard and I try to get some of that energy out, but then that dog's becoming too aroused, then maybe I spend more of my time walking that dog instead. So still average about 15-20 minutes, but it's going to be dependent on the dog. Yards, you are still more than welcome and encouraged to use the different play yards, but be mindful of the type of dog you're about to take in there. So reactivity doesn't always go well in the play yards. We do have the mesh between each of the fences, but dogs still know other dogs are there. So if you go into a play yard and they just are getting more and more reactive, then maybe it's worth it to go walk them instead. When in the play yards, please remember that the dogs need to drag their leashes. The play yards at the Malone Center are really big, and if you have a fearful dog that won't come near you, you're gonna have a hard time releashing. If you have a high arousal dog that's running all over the place, maybe trying to play a chasing game, you're gonna have a hard time releashing as well. The yards at the Buddy Center aren't as big, but again, same idea. you may still find it hard to releash a dog. So we are going to ask you to never take that leash off in general. Just let them drag it so that if needed, you can get close enough to at least step on that leash and then pick it up from there. Having them drag the leash is also really beneficial if they were to ever actually get away from you and they're loose maybe in the friendship circle or they're loose on your way back, inside. Having the leash stay on is always going to help when it comes to catching a loose dog. And then training, cues, stuff like that. You are more than welcome to train like we talked about, but it needs to be positive reinforcement only. If you use the clicker, click always means treat. And then a quick thing about cues. So often when we are engaging with dogs, we want to see what they know, which is great. So I asked my dog to sit, but I've heard plenty of people be like, sit, 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 sit. And they just keep saying it over and over and over. A dog may know how to sit and maybe did really well in their home environment, but most people are not going to train their dog to sit in this kind of environment. And so they come here to a high stress environment and maybe they're familiar with the word, but not enough to actually offer sit every time they're asked. So we have a nice little rule of thumb, and that's when asking for a dog to sit, only do it twice. The first time, maybe they didn't hear you. So I'm going to give my dog a chance, a break. And then the second time, I'm going to make sure my dog is paying attention. I'm going to say the cue very clearly. And then I'm going to give my dog a chance to sit. Count to 10. If my dog does not sit after that, then I'm not going to ask my dog to sit anymore. Because again, they may be familiar enough with it, but we don't want the dog to learn that they sit whenever. They sit after 5 times. They sit after 8 times. Anytime they want, because we constantly kept saying that. So it's okay to see what cues they know, but please stop asking for sit after 2 times. Okay, teamwork. So just a little bit thing about that. So obviously, if you are walking with another advanced dog walker, you can walk 2 dogs from the same kennel. Just communicate with each other who's going to walk that dog and stuff. When it comes to walking dogs outside, there's different play yards to go through. There's different paths. So if you come on a very busy day, just making sure that you're communicating with each other so that everyone has a nice walk. When it comes to dogs and different behaviors, we're all going to have our own impression of the dog. So please do what's best for the dog. Be that dog's advocate. Someone may be like, that dog needs to go out, and you may go try to get out and it's just not loving it that day. Then it is okay if you're like, no, I'm just going to give this guy a break. Even if someone else wants to offer and try it themselves, it is okay if a dog doesn't go out in that exact moment. Do what's best for the dog in that situation. Follow the leader. So this is a nice handy tool if you have a dog that doesn't want to go back in. So again, we never want dogs to actually meet each other, but sometimes having a dog pass by that's like 6 feet away can be enough to get a dog to walk back to the building. So if you are struggling to get a dog back in and there is a dog walker that's close by, communicate with the dog walker that you're just gonna see if your dog will follow their dog back in, but still make sure that they don't actually meet each other. And then if you are struggling with any behavior, getting the dog back, anything like that, then behavior can always be paged. The easiest way to do that is if somebody's walking by, you can have them go inside and let somebody know to page, but also with your cell phone. So we don't want you on your cell phone taking pictures, chatting and stuff, but having a cell phone in an emergency is still really important. So program the number to the dump friends leak in your phone, and if you are stuck or if a dog got loose and nobody is around you, call the main line and let them know that you need help, and they will page behavior overhead and behavior will come out. So flag someone down first, but if all else fails, go ahead and at least call and get somebody to come out. Okay, medical concerns. So these are just the basic things, not necessarily specific to being on the advance. So it is important to read about a dog, what's going on with the dog. So is there, any concerning thing? Was the dog recently spayed or neutered? That may be affecting some of the behavior changes. Body language. During a vet exam, how well did that dog do? Is the ears currently infected and stuff, and we're treating that. So just having a better idea of any potential medical concerns. That will also kind of dictate when it comes to walking your dog. You know, do I need to walk slower? Am I just doing some potty breaks? So again, just kind of understanding if there is any medical concerns. If they recently had a surgery, the other thing I'm going to encourage you is consider more of a hands-off approach, especially if they have a big incision on their back, stuff like that. We want to be really mindful of that sensitive area. And then high value treats, across the board, we're going to encourage you to use those anytime that's needed, especially if you have a dog that's, you know, just not feeling good or is a little sensitive to being handled and you're going to leash, use those treats to get that leash on. Okay, rekenneling a dog. So if you're coming back to a kennel and there is another dog in the kennel, you can try shutting the guillotine if they have a guillotine. If they don't, if they're in a pod kennel or they're in the Flex A kennel, it is okay to get help to rekennel your dog. Use of treats. So you can use treats to encourage your dog back in the kennel or use treats as a distraction when you exit the kennel. Obviously, if there's multiple dogs in the kennel, you need to be really mindful of that. Unleashing, please make sure you fully enter the kennel to unleash. If, however, you have made a leash wrap on your dog, I would actually encourage you to take the leash wrap part off outside of the kennel. Also, something easy to do at a door when the dog is distracted. Avoid hovering when you are undoing that leash wrap. But as far as the actual leash itself, make sure you fully enter to unleash that dog. Socialization in the kennel. So it is okay to spend some time in the kennel after bringing your dog back, but please watch for changes in posture. So you may think that hanging out the dog is a great thing, but if your dog was already really stressed on the walk and now you come back and they're avoidant, they go into the corner, they're trembling, you spending a few minutes in there is not necessarily going to help the dog. Same with if I have an aroused dog that's already really worked up by the time I bring them back. If I stay in that kennel with them, there's a chance they're going to get more aroused. Maybe they were already lightly mouthing. Now they're starting to apply a lot more pressure. So getting out of the kennel is going to be the better route. Needs intentions left. So as a reminder, please fill those out, especially if you have a dog that's having a hard time going back in the kennel. Maybe they are putting on the brakes the moment you're at the door. Maybe they're trying really hard to dart out when you're shutting the door. Let us know these things so that we can work on them. We can definitely do that in our behavior programs. We might also need to find a different kennel to house them in. And then adding notes, if you are having any kenneling issues, definitely write those notes in so that the next person is aware that maybe the dog is not easy to rekennel. Okay, so now we're going to go into the heart of this whole thing, and that's definitely the behavior concerns. So this again is why these dogs are on advance. So we want to make sure that every dog that's in the shelter has the opportunity to go outside. It's also required, it's a pact of regularization, but we also want to make sure that dog walkers are prepared. And so that is how advance came to be. We had a few more challenging dogs and our basic dog walkers just didn't have the tools necessary to help these dogs when it came to walking. So that's why we created not only advance, but also this training to help you just have those tools when it comes to these specific concerns. And then we looked at the concerns to figure out which ones we're just going to need a little bit more time. And we came up with this list right here. So the first one that we're going to talk about is that high energy, high arousal dog. So again, like I said earlier, this can be small dogs, but often the ones that make it to actually advance are usually the medium to large dogs that when they're jumping on you or nail raking you, it hurts. And so being prepared to deal with a big dog that's jumping all over you. So just some things to keep in mind when going to walk these types of dogs is being prepared is really, really important. So understanding where the dog seems to struggle the most. Is it when you first enter the kennel, the dog is so excited, jumping, nail raking, mouthy at that moment? Maybe it's not when you first enter the kennel. Maybe it's when you get the dog to the play yard and they're starting to run around and they're chasing a ball and all of a sudden they're getting more aroused there. Maybe it is when you come back and you re-kennel them. So reading those notes is really going to help to know when, but also to what degree. So is the dog only jumping? Is the dog using its mouth? Is the dog nail raking? Is the dog biting on its leash when it gets really worked up? What are the things that you might experience during your walk? Again, leash wrapping can be done in the kennel. However, if my dog is already really energetic in the kennel, then the better route is to step out of the kennel and then at the next point of distraction, so usually the door to get out of the kennel area is a good place. Another fun thing to do to help with that is do that little find a game. So toss some treats on the ground, and while your dog is eating the treats, use that opportunity to put the leash wrap on. Energy release. So energy release is super, super important for these guys. Going to the play yard, playing fetch with 2 toys, those are all really good things. Play yards, however, can be a place that dog gets more and more worked up. So if my dog will not do well in a play yard because that is where he starts to get all mouthy, then the other version, energy release, is going to be more walks. So it is okay to walk around the friendship circle a couple times. Buddy center, it's a little harder because they don't really have any walking things except for that big yard. But sometimes with that big yard, there's other dogs in there. So just do the best you can. But if you can't go to a play yard because it's just too much for your dog, then walk your dog around. That is always a great thing because, again, they can be stopping, they can be sniffing. So give them that opportunity. But play yards are great if your dog will actually engage with toys. Use treats to refocus or redirect. So if my dog is getting really worked up, is jumping, is placing their mouth on me, then treats are a nice thing because when I toss them, it's not just, they go check it out. They actually have to take the time to eat it. Sometimes toys can help in that instant too. So if I just want to redirect, I can throw the toy to the other side of the play yard. But some dogs will go pick it up, but some dogs won't. So you do need to find something that is going to work to redirect and refocus your dog's attention. Again, dragging the leash is really important for these guys because if I have a dog that is all over me and I need to put some separation, I can pick up that leash real quick as I step out of the play yard in the alcove. I can hold that leash out and I can kind of shut that door and now we're separated out. If that dog ever got away from you, same idea. You can always step on that leash. Again, separation is very helpful with a high energy, high aroused dog. So if I'm in the yard and they are jumping on me, they're very mouthy, I want to separate myself out. So going into the little alcoves are always a great thing to do. Or if you're in the kennel with them, step out of the kennel. And then please get help if needed. If you were in a play yard and the dog was too aroused, jumping and biting, and you are really uncomfortable, it is okay to have somebody else come out there. Use your phone, call, have somebody pace behavior. We will come and we will get that dog from you. We don't want to force you to come back in and bring that dog all the way around the circle if that dog has already overwhelmed you. Leash reactivity. So again, for a dog to make it on the advanced list for reactivity, it's usually a little bit more severe. So often those bigger dogs that are harder to redirect, maybe they're pulling you harder when they move towards it versus maybe a little dog. We have had little dogs make it to advance, and it's usually those that everything they see, they're reactive at. So yes, I can manage a little dog and decrease that distance by pulling my dog over to the side, but if every little thing that moves is causing that dog to be reactive, we might still put that guy on advanced just because he's going to be a little bit more challenging to walk. So with reactivity, definitely read the notes and decide and figure out when is that dog reactive. So we have different areas and different types of reactivity. Sorry about that. So some dogs are reactive inside. So unfortunately, how we house our dogs, there is kennels side by side, and there's potentially a lot of dogs in that one area. So if one dog is already barking, when you take your dog out, you may have a dog that's reactive every kennel it passes on the way out, or if you're walking an adoptable dog and you're passing by the glass, every glass part of the kennel that they pass, they're becoming really reactive there. Sometimes it's more outside. So inside they're doing okay, but as soon as you get outside, especially if again you come on a busy day and there's a lot of people or other dogs. Sorry about that. So if it's outside, if it's people, if it's other dogs, then if you come on a slow day, no big deal. But if you come on a busy day, then you may find that every play yard you pass, your dog is going to bark at. Or if you take your dog to the play yard, read those notes. You know, do you see anybody that says walking the circle isn't a big deal, but if I stop in that play yard, that's where my dog gets more worked up as people and dogs are walking by. So being prepared is still really important too. Again, the whole idea of, am I in a good spot to take on a dog that is potentially going to be reactive at everything outside? Leash wrap is still really good because usually reactive dogs are pulling towards what they are reacting. So leash wrapping is going to keep them from choking themselves. Plan your walking route. So when we talk about walking route and reactivity, it is not about necessarily getting outside. You can definitely consider that, you know, if you have an adoptable dog and walking by every dog is a lot, then maybe we do go a different way. We do have that rooftop play yard. Maybe we just walk our dog up there. But also considering where you're walking outside. So if you are here at the Malone Center, we do have the 3 different paths. So if I am walking my dog on a very busy day, then maybe I don't go the path that everybody is traveling. Maybe I try to find a way that I can keep my dog away from other dogs. Play yards, do I want to use a play yard or not? If I am here at the Malone Center and I'm walking in the circle, and I also need to separate myself out, the other 2 things to consider, sometimes it's bad enough that you need to step out of the friendship circle. So there are a couple gates that allow you to get out. One is in the back with, if you were to do the long path, and then one is over there to the side that you can easily do the shorter path with. So also considering that, like your escape routes essentially. So where am I going to take my dog? What routes? Things like that. Keep focus. So treats are a great way to keep your dog focused. So as you're walking, if that dog is checking in with you, you know, talk to the dog, give that dog treats, really reinforce that dog for staying focused on you. If you need to focus that dog, then same idea, use those treats. Or if you need to redirect your dog's attention, you can use the ball, the toy, throw it, say you're in the play yard and the dog is at the front getting really worked up, throw that ball to the back and see if you can redirect its attention. Dragging leash is also important for these guys because if my dog is getting really reactive and I need to try to separate him out, I never want to put my hands on the dog itself. So you can always step on that leash and encourage the dog back away. Again, we don't want to drag our dog away. It's just more of a way that I can pick up that leash and start calling my dog and walking in the opposite direction to increase that distance between my dog and whatever it's reacting at. And then lastly, get help if needed. So same idea, if you have made it outside and you're in a play yard and that dog has just become too much for you to handle, you're feeling a little overwhelmed, it is okay to step out of that play yard and then again, call the main line, have someone page behavior, and we'll come out and we'll take that dog away from you. Because these guys can be overwhelming. Sometimes they pull really hard. Sometimes they have a really scary bark and they're just really overwhelming. So the main thing is to stay positive, try to redirect, try to create distance between you and the other dog. If it's not working, try to get the dog back inside. If that's still not working, then definitely please get some help. Fear. So fear is going to be across the board on sizes. So sometimes it's our little guys, but sometimes it is a 100-pound dog that is terrified of leaving its kennel or terrified of the leash or terrified of walking on the slick floors. So please, again, read your notes, find out where this dog is the worst. Is it in the kennel when you first approach? Is it outside with the environmental noises, especially right now with construction? Is it when it's close to other people or other animals? Is it during handling? The dog just is really stressed out about being pet. Understand where your dog is struggling the most when it comes to fear so that you can plan accordingly. Move slowly and calmly. So really with these guys, you definitely want to take things slow. That doesn't mean that you go into a kennel and you're like, okay, I've been in this kennel 10 minutes trying to get this dog outside. Remember, time in the kennel, especially if you close the guillotine, is very stressful for that dog if he's already scared. So if you sit in that kennel and you try for 10 minutes to get him out, you may be actually making that dog more stressed than needed. So going slow and taking your time to leash, but also please be mindful if that dog is getting more stressed with you in the kennel. Use treats. So treats can be used just to make a good association. So offering treats. Treats can also be used for leashing. So you can drop some treats on the ground and then put that loop over their head while they're eating. Please avoid carrying these guys. So a lot of them are going to be little guys, but that doesn't mean that we need to pick them up. So rule of thumb is only pick up dogs that are 25 pounds or less. But again, even if I have a 5-pound Chihuahua that is scared, I want to try to not automatically just go pick them up because not all of these dogs are going to want to be picked up. Plan your walking routes. So that really speaks to how far is my dog really willing to go? Is he going to make it to a play yard? And will he even have fun in a play yard? Or will he just sit by the gate trembling? Is he going to make it around the full path at the Malone Center? Or maybe I just need to do the shorter route. So looking at what's the best thing for your dog and how much your dog's willing to do. Because unfortunately, especially at the Malone Center with construction, it can be a little scary. Move at the dog's pace. So again, that speaks to the slowly and calmly, allow the dog to initiate interaction. That's always the better route if you can. If not, make sure that you're approaching appropriately. You're offering your side. You're not staring. You're bending at the knees. Again, socialize in the kennel. It is fine to hang out in the kennel and offer treats, stuff like that, but please be mindful if that dog is getting more stressed by your presence. Dragging the leash for fearful dogs is really important because if I do take my fearful dog to the play yard and he spends his whole time avoidant of me, then I have the leash to be able to step on and take the dog back in. Please write notes if that dog is avoidant in the play yard. Some of these fear guys, it's not a good idea to take them to a play yard. So please note that so that other dog walkers don't get in the same situation as you did and having that dog in a play yard and it taking a while to get that dog out of the play yard. So if you read that in the notes, then I would just walk my dog around the friendship circle or walk them to a buddy center play yard, spend a little bit of time, and then take them back. And then obviously get help when needed. So if you are in a play yard and you are stuck and you cannot get that dog back because it just keeps running away from you and you can't get close enough to step on the leash, then that's a good time to ask for help. If you have a dog that doesn't want to come back inside because they're afraid of walking through a doorway, same thing. If somebody's walking by, ask them to help. Otherwise, go ahead and call and have behavior paged. Okay, so then our last main one is the medical guys. So these are usually going to be more of your higher end medical concerns. So things like being deaf, blind, or maybe a recent tripod. So often with these guys, the issue itself is not always why they're on advance. So deaf dogs, blind dogs, even tripod dogs function fairly well, but sometimes you still have to go really slow with them. So if you have like a fearful blind dog, then we may put that dog in advance because we need to go really slow. Or if we have a high arousal recent tripod, we need to make sure that we are being mindful of the recent surgery and keeping our dog calm. We actually once had a dog that had to have a tail amputation due to happy tail, and she was so high arousally that we did take her to a play yard a couple times, and she actually ran around so much that she had popped some of her sutures because she was just running into things and getting really worked up. And so we ultimately had to take her off of basic because she was a good girl and she was easy to handle in some aspects, but when she became aroused, it was affecting that medical side of things. And so sometimes you'll see it, stuff like that. So reading their notes, understanding maybe how long ago they had that surgery, if they are a tripod or the tail amputation. Also reading their notes about being deaf and blind. So some dogs can hear some things and some dogs can see some things, maybe shadows. So kind of having a better idea of what level of deafness or blindness there is. For dogs that are blind, you please announce your presence. Don't just walk up to a dog and try to pet it or go to leash it. Depending on their recent surgery, or maybe they are blind and they don't walk well on leash, also consider when it comes to walking them. Am I going to do just a quick potty break, or am I going to go further in the circle? Do I take them to a play yard? Do I not? Using treats. Treats are really good for all of these guys because, again, for a tripod that's jumping all over the place, I can redirect and focus it. For a blind dog, I can do a treat trail to get it move a little further. For a deaf dog, I can also toss treats and hope that he can, sniff them nearby and goes over there and eats them or something like that. So treats are really good to use across the board. Obviously slow down, even with those higher energy guys, take it slow. If you're walking a dog with a cone, please help them with their cone. Usually cones are the worst when it comes to stairs or small doorways. So if they're running into stuff, kind of help them with that. And so, yeah, again, these guys don't always make it on advanced. Usually if they do, it's because there's something else going on along with that medical concern. Okay, so that's it basically. That is just some reminders, different concepts we want you to be aware of, and then all the different behaviors that put a dog onto advance. So what we're going to do now is just a real quick, fun, heads up review aspect. Then we're going to do a little bit of troubleshooting, and that will be it. If any questions have come up through all the things we've been talking about, please write them down, and like I said, bring them with you to class. We're going to do a little bit of a review. We'll have time for questions, and then we will do some hands-on stuff where we actually go walk some of these different dogs. So cool, let's go through these things real quick. So find it, just as a reminder, find it is a wonderful way to get a dog to redirect their attention. You essentially take a handful of treats and you toss it away from you so that the dog is focused now on the treats, maybe not jumping on you or barking at the other dog. The treats are what's focused on. Great way to also place a leash wrap and spread those treats out. Needs attention slip. So as a reminder, they are going to be located by the computers where you are looking up your dogs. There's a spot for ones that are empty and then a spot for ones that are filled out. When filling those out, please, please, please put the A number. That is the one way that we can actually find that dog, because if you only put the kennel number, sometimes by then the dog has been moved. We do not look at these hourly. We look at them a couple times throughout the day. And so if it's an emergency, please do not use a needs attendance slip, only for minor things. And then obviously to express any behavior concerns. 12 and 5-second rules. So as a reminder, these are going to be things you're going to do when you first approach that kennel. The key is to slow down, take the time to assess what you're seeing, act accordingly, see if the dog engages with you or not. And then remember, behavior is fluid. So what you see when you first approach may not be what you see when you enter. So take the time to also look for those changes in behavior as you change their environment. Moving slowly. It's going to be good across the board. It doesn't matter what type of behavior you're dealing with. Moving slowly is going to help keep a crazy dog calm. It's going to help a fearful dog, adjust well and engage with you more. Leash wrap. So any dog that pulls, even if they are a little dog, they may not be pulling you off your feet like a 100-pound dog, but they still run the risk of choking themselves. So a leash wrap is simply to keep a dog from choking themselves. Again, we don't teach dogs or encourage dogs to walk closely to do that heel behavior. We want to allow them to go and sniff and pull here and there, but obviously we don't want them to choke themselves. So doing a leash wrap is going to help with that. Again, you can work on loose leash walking, Basically, all you do is you're walking along, dog is pulling, stop walking. As soon as that dog has any slack in the leash, maybe he looks back at you, have a treat handy. If you do clicker training, click for that slack and then have him come up to you to get the treat. If you're not doing clicker, same idea though, give him that treat, have him come closer to you to get the treat, and then start walking again. If he pulls, stop. So loose leash walking is hard because you could literally stop every time they pull. So at the very least, make sure you do that leash wrap so they aren't choking themselves. Where to make the leash wrap is better if you are somewhere confined so that you don't run the risk of the dog slipping away from you while you're trying to put the leash. Sorry, excuse me. You can do it in the kennel, but if your dog is already very energetic in the kennel jumping up, then it's worth it maybe to do it at the next distraction point, like at the door about to exit the area or the door to go outside, or maybe again in the play yard when you're about to go back into the circle to walk, you can make it there real quick. And then as a reminder with leash wraps, I encourage you guys to take the leash wrap part off before you get back in the kennel because you are going to be in a small area, especially if there's other dogs in the kennel. Everybody's going to be jumping on you while you try to move that. But you don't want to obviously take the leash off until you're actually in the kennel. So this just applies to the leash wrap. Dragging the leash. So all play yards, no matter if you're here at the Loan Center or at the Buddy Center, please have the dog drag the leash. It is going to help in every situation. If your dog doesn't want to come back in because they are excited, they don't want to go back to their kennel, so they're running away from you in that play yard, a fearful dog keeping their distance, or if I have to get a reactive dog away from the fence, that leash is going to be important. So please have them drag that leash. Reactivity. So as some reminders, the best thing to do for a reactive dog is to increase the distance between your dog and whatever they're reacting at. So that can be by going a different way. That can just be stopping, and maybe I do that find it thing. So my dog is eating trees while the person or other dog is getting further away from us. Reactivity in play yards, not always a good mix. So if I do go in there and my dog is getting so worked up and I can't redirect his attention, sometimes it's worth stepping out. And then just be mindful of walking past other kennels inside, especially the glass side for the adoptable kennels at Malone. Sometimes that can make things a lot worse, and we don't want to allow dogs to spend a few seconds jumping on that gate and creating more of a fence fighting component. So please try your best without putting your hands on them to keep them walking past those dogs. Play yards, all the dogs you walk can go into a play yard, but not all of them are going to enjoy it. So high energy is a great dog to take in a play yard. You can throw the ball, you can do fetch with them. But if your dog is getting too worked up, jumping on you, starting to nail right, then I'm not going to spend time in the play yard. Reactive dogs, it is great to also do in the play yard because I can get a lot of that energy out, that frustration that could be adding to that reactive component. But again, if they're just too reactive, they're too worked up, I'm going to step out. Fearful dogs, sometimes the play yards are just too overwhelming, they're too big, there's too much going on. So if I go into a play yard with a fear guy and he just stays at the gate trembling, then I'm not going to force him to stay in there. Other dogs, the medical guys, you can go into a play yard, but if they have a hard time seeing or they had a recent surgery, I do want to be mindful of going into a play yard with them. Toys, so toys speak to that 2-toy rule. So if I'm playing fetch, make sure you do have the 2 toys so that you don't run the risk of getting bit if you were to go pick up a toy. Also be mindful if you're holding a toy in your hand and your dog is really excited to get that toy. Try not to be holding it down and allow them to access that and potentially scrape your hand. Some other things about toys is we do have a clean bin and a dirty bin. Please let us also know if you guys are in need of toys. We try to fill those up daily, but sometimes we don't get out there. And then please throw toys away that are not useful anymore. We sometimes get toys that the stuffing is missing and they make it back to the laundry. So if you're done playing with the toy and your dog essentially is destroyed, please just go ahead and throw that toy away. And then also please pick up your toys. So we do have that dirty bin for a reason. We don't want someone else to bring their dog into a play yard after you were there and all of a sudden go put their mouth on the toy that your dog just played with. That is a big contagion issue. And so please put the toys that your dog just engaged with in the dirty bin so that new dogs don't play with the same toys. Tripod. So the thing to keep in mind on tripod, if it's on an advance, is what is the other issue that may have gotten it there? Was it a recent surgery? Does it have a cone on? And so I do want to be mindful of getting my dog outside if he has a cone or if he might be a little bit uncomfortable. And if he is also a high arousal dog, I need to make sure that I try my best to keep my dog calm so he doesn't hurt himself. High arousal. So again, this is that dog that's jumping, nail raking, mouthing, maybe even biting on the leash. So I just want to, one, be prepared. I want to know that I'm in a good place to take a dog like this outside on a walk. Because a lot of people think that if a dog is really crazy in his kennel, as soon as they get him outside, things will get better. And that is not true. Sometimes things get worse. Just like the dog that maybe did fine in his kennel, but as soon as you went to the play yard, it got worse. So high arousal dogs can easily continue to escalate. And you don't want to find yourself in a position outside that you're stuck and you are already kind of in a rough place mentally and emotionally that you just can't really handle that dog. So definitely make sure you're in a really good spot to take a dog like this out. Read when that dog was becoming the worst. You know, if other people had success doing things like the find it stuff, please also write those in your notes to help other people, but look for those things. You know, look for, did the toys work? Did treats work? Maybe this dog doesn't like treats. And so having a toy with you, especially for a dog that does like to bite its leash, having a toy that you can redirect is really helpful stuff. So reading notes, being mentally prepared, giving outlets in the play yard are great unless it becomes out of hand. Walking around the circle several times is really good as well. And then please get help with these kind of dogs. They can be challenging. Deaf or blind, again, is there another reason that they are on the advanced list? You know, what's going on with them? How much can they see? How much can they hear? Where do I want to take this dog? Do I just want to do a quick potty break? Do I want to do the full circle? Things like that to keep in mind. Fear. So fear, is it in the kennel? Is it outside? Is it when someone goes to leash? Is it walking on leash? Is it fear of the floors? What exactly is going on with this dog? You know, be prepared to take a few minutes to leash that dog. But again, spending 10, 15 minutes trying to leash a dog is not necessarily the best thing for that dog. Which route do I want to take when I walk that dog? Is he going to make it the full circle or maybe just to the first play yard? Walking routes. So walking routes speak to getting outside. So here at the Malone Center, we do have a couple paths to get outside depending on which side of the building you are on, and also a path to make sure you come in the right way. The other thing is outside in the friendship circle. There are the 3 different paths. So which path do I want to take as I walk my dog around? Again, mental preparedness. So that's just being prepared by reading all the notes and really understanding the type of dog you're about to work or walk. And then also just being mentally prepared with yourself. Are you in a good spot? Clicker, we use it here. We love it. Feel free to do it. If you don't know clicker, but you would like to learn more, you can always touch base with behavior and we can help you learn that more. We're also always in need of our Head Start volunteers, which actually does clicker training. So you can also look into taking some classes there. High value treat. So the thing that we ask is obviously don't use really high value like hot dogs and cheese because we're using that for actual training on site. But think about it from their perspective. You know, they may eat a milk bone, but are they willing to redirect their attention from barking at another dog for a milk bone? You might need something of a little higher value. When it comes to treats, we do offer treats here. We do have some different treats in some of the food prep areas and stuff. So having treats on hand is a necessity when walking these advanced dogs. So make sure that you also have some way to hold on to those treats. We do little training pouches and behavior. You can, during the winter, have it in your coat. You can get yourself a little pouch, you know, whatever works for you. But having easy access to those treats is going to be really important. Redirection. So treats as a redirection, toys as a redirection, sometimes just change of environment. So for the reactive dogs, going a different way can be a form of redirection. Same if I have a high arousal jumping dog. So if I stand still, my dog might keep jumping on me. If I can redirect their attention to walk, So I just start walking along the path. I can even use treats to toss them in front of me to get the dog to walk a few feet. And then I just keep walking. Sometimes I can even pick up my pace a little. You don't necessarily have to run, but if I pick up my pace, then maybe I can redirect my dog's attention back on the actual act of walking and not jumping on me. Okay, so then last thing we're gonna do, like I said, is just do some troubleshooting. We'll do this a little in person as well so that we can talk through some of these things. But some of the main things that we often get is jumping up. So what do I do when my dog is jumping up? So the first thing we're going to ask you to do is ignore it. So it's easy to tell our dogs no. It's easy to want to push them down. Some people will even turn around and offer their back. Most of the dogs that are jumping up in a shelter environment are jumping up to get your attention. They don't care what type of attention. You verbally telling them something or you physically. So pushing them down, but also turning your back. For some dogs, it's still a reaction, and those dogs will actually keep jumping on your back. So the better route is to do nothing. Protect your chest, protect your face if you have a dog that's high enough to reach those. If ignoring is not enough to get them to stop, because sometimes that is, if they're like, okay, I'm not getting attention, I'm gonna do something else. Then other things to do, ask them to do something else. So again, you can't ask for the sit. Remember the 2 cue time, don't ask more than that. If that still is not working, then redirection is always good. So toys, treats, but also just getting out of the situation. So if I'm in the kennel and my dog is jumping, it does us no favors, the dog or me, to stay in that kennel. So maybe I just need to step out. Maybe I need to step out of the play yard if they're getting so aroused, if I can't redirect their attention onto treats or toys. Offering appeasement gestures. So remember, those are portrayed when a dog perceives a threat. So another animal or a person. So if I'm seeing those things, they are being presented to me, like showing them the belly, stuff like that, then I want to be really mindful. You know, was I hovering over them to slip that leash on? Was I staring at them? So alter your body postures to come off less threatening so that dog doesn't feel like they have to offer those. Overt aggression. So this is a question that occasionally comes up. So rarely will you see a dog that is showing overt aggression, but any situation can quickly escalate. So for instance, say I have a fearful dog that doesn't really walk well on leash. I am successful in getting that dog outside, but then all of a sudden a big construction truck passes by and my dog gets startled to the point that my dog is pulling back on the leash, hits the end of it, and starts to panic. So my dog is starting to flail and alligator roll, and I don't want to let my dog go because I'm like, I'm in the middle of the parking lot. And so I hold on, but my dog progressively gets worse. All of a sudden, my dog is now biting me. So that is definitely going to be more of the situation. It's a fear aggression response to a panic situation. So I need to be really mindful of trying to prevent those situations if I can. But if not, your safety is number one. So if my dog is getting to the point where he is biting me, then unfortunately, getting that distance between you and the dog is going to be really important. We have a lot of protocols in place to catch a loose dog if it was loose, or say you're in the play yard and you step out, we can get that dog back inside. But please be protective of yourself, be mindful of yourself. So again, a dog that's showing aggression in every situation is not going to make it to the dog walking list. But that doesn't mean that in a given situation where they are over threshold, they are stressed, they are aroused, that there won't be some sort of escalation. So please use your techniques, please get help, and again, please separate yourself out from your dog if they are starting to escalate. Jumping up, but a little bit more than that, open mouth to the face. Again, protect your face, protect your chest. If I have a dog that's escalating to that point, being a little bit more mouthy, same idea, separation. You separate yourself from that dog, even if it's just having the door between you, stepping in that little alcove for the play yards. Mouthing, so redirection, if I can use treat, if I can use a toy, especially if they are mouthing the leash. If they're starting to mouth my coat or they're mouthing my shoes, same thing. Redirection is always the number one thing you should go to, but it doesn't always work. So the next thing would be some level of separation, some distance between you and the dog. Grabbing the leash with the mouth. So same idea of redirection, but the biggest thing for this guy is please let us know about these dogs. You will occasionally see dogs that are being walked on a chain leash, and that is because they are quick to mouth the leash. So please let us know this dog. We will figure out a better technique to walk them. Sometimes walking them with 2 leashes. So when they're biting the one, I can drop that leash and I still have the other one in my hand, so I won't worry about them getting away. So using 2 leashes can help, but again, let staff know so that we can potentially look and see if a chain leash, if we use a chain leash, we obviously are going to need to make sure we fit them with a real collar as well, because those current collars are only temporary. Barking and lunging towards other dogs and people, so basically that reactive component. But sometimes it is pretty intense and really scary. And some of these dogs get so worked up that we always run the risk of them, redirecting. So distance, create the distance, go a different way. Even if going a different way, say you just got outside and there's so many other dog walkers, maybe there's just too much going on. So bring that dog back in, put it down as an attempt, put in some really good notes, and then hopefully that afternoon or later in the day when it's not as crazy, we can try to get that dog out again. Redirection, again, always important. If your dog is in the moment reactive, don't try to touch him, just try to redirect his attention. Not walking, stalling, refusing to come back inside. So the main thing is if they are under 25 pounds, please fight the urge to want to pick them up. Yes, it is easy, but we do want to try to help them work through whatever issue they're experiencing. Sometimes it is a floor issue, sometimes it's crossing over the threshold, sometimes it's they don't want to go back to their kennel because it's not that exciting. So going different ways. So sometimes you can go to a different door and kind of show the dog that yes, we're going back, but we're not going the same way. Using treats, toys, do the follow the leader. So having another dog pass by, but still keep that distance. And then obviously, if you need get help, call the main line, have them page behavior, or ask somebody that's walking by to have someone page behavior, and we can come out and we can help you. First, some dogs we have had to, bring some tools, maybe a blanket or something if needed, but we will definitely help get your dog back inside. And then last one is a challenge question. So what do you do if you see guarding behavior? Guarding behavior does occur in a shelter environment. Guarding behavior is made worse by stress, and shelters sadly are stressful. So the main thing is if you ever see it, please note it. We may need to even go as far as putting up a sign that says this dog is a food guarder so that people are aware of that. Obviously, if you know that going into it, treats are a good tool, but if I have a dog that won't eat his treats, instead he's going to start to guard him, I need to be really careful of that. Some dogs will even guard toys. So one, I never want to try to pick up a toy or a food item that is close to a dog. I don't want to put him in a position where he feels like he has to guard. I want to make sure that he has moved away from it. So if I can encourage him, it's the water bowl, for instance. If I can get him to step away from the water bowl so that I can walk out the door, because that's where the water bowl is, it's at the front door, just trying to redirect his attention. The main thing for guarding is in the moment, please do not punish. If that dog growls at you, don't tell him no. And then please let us know. So the moment a dog growls at you, say the leash is still on the dog and the dog has just started guarding its food bowl that was placed in while you were gone, I would just step out of the kennel. I would go get some staff member, because what we may have to do is let that dog finish eating his food and then try to remove that leash. We may have to try to redirect his attention to something. But as a volunteer, I'm going to encourage you that if you seek guarding and you still have to do something with the dog, please just go get a staff member and have them complete, unleash whatever is needed. And then please fill out a needs attendance slip. We do need to know about this so that we can manage it in shelter, but also so we can talk to the adopting patron about this behavior so that they are prepared to manage it as well. Well, that is it. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this Zoom training. This is the first part. This is the information session for advanced dog walking. The next part is, again, that hands-on. So it is an in-person on-site. We will spend time going over some of the stuff that you saw in the Zoom thing today. We will do some review. We will have time for questions. So please write down any questions, like I said, that you had during today's class. And then we will spend most of the time just practicing. Practicing is going to be an opportunity for you guys to ask questions too about, a situation you had with a certain dog. It is also going to be a chance for us to just make sure that you're comfortable reading body postures, comfortable when it comes to leash wrapping, all those great techniques. So if you haven't had a chance, make sure you do sign up for those in person. They are not a walk-in only. They are going to need to be signed up because we can only have so many people in a class at a time. So please make sure that you have signed up. And again, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to meeting you all and for you guys to become advanced dog walkers.